I'm very, very happy to be here, so thank you for inviting me. My name is Pauliina Grym. I'm a media professional from Finland. I've worked in the media for 20 years now. Also done some communications in between for 4 years, being on the commercial side, and my current job is with the Finnish National Broadcasting Company, YLE. I like to refer it to as the Finnish BBC, high standards, right? And now at this moment, I am on a PhD leave to write my dissertation for a Finnish university, the University of Jyväskylä, on advocacy journalism and activist journalism. And today I'm going to share with you some of the things that I learned last summer in Minneapolis talking to the independent media there. Yeah, that's me. And that's actually me with King Dimitris Pendleton. And he's one of the people I interviewed. I could describe him to be the Jordan Peterson of the George Floyd Square. He's a photographer, but I think more than that, he is a guide to the young Black men in the area. I spent 5 hours in his studio where he does his podcast and where he presents his photos, for example, from the unrest, the protests, the riots, and there was at least 2 or 3 groups of young men and local social workers, if I understood correctly, who came there, and he pretty much told them that show up on time, don't be a dick, respect your elders and your mother, and try to make it. And let's see, okay. So my dissertation, in short, the first article that I'm working in is going to be an analysis of the people I interviewed, and then also a context analysis of what a group called Unicorn Riot wrote about George Floyd, starting from the spring of 2020 when it happened in May, and ending in the fall of 2025. And this morning here in Sofia, I understood what I have to do. Imagine, I came here and I got the aha moment. I will, of course, look through there. There's a lot of stuff on their website, Unicorn Riot, you should check it out. I will see how they write about the protesters and the activists, and how they write about the Minneapolis Police Department. Because this is what they told me about how hard it is to be an activist and a journalist at the same time. And can it even be done? We are a bit late on schedule, so I'm not gonna torture you with my interactive part here. But one question, how many of you who are journalists here, I know there's plenty, think that you can be 100% objective in every story you write? Raise your hand. What? You're honest, right? Yeah, and that is a problem, isn't it? But it's very different. It's very different to kind of admit it and then to go fully, let's say, advocate. And just to take us back a little bit, we think that objectivity is something that we look for in journalism, right? To some extent, it could be like somewhat reliable. It was actually a commercial decision. And this is interesting. I only learned this when I was writing my dissertation, the foreword, just to be that, or the kappa. Because in the early 20th century was actually the time when an actor called Associated Press realized that if they want to maximize their revenue, they should only publish one outlet of news and not to try to make, let's say, 2 different kinds of, right? To people who are partisan to different kind of people. So they make more money when they produce something that can appeal to everybody. So that's very interesting, because I would think that objectivity, it sounds very like non-capitalist, right? Originally, it wasn't that. Okay, so I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul from mid-July to mid-September in 2025. And I asked the people I met, how do they define the truth? Because the word truth was something that came up quite often. Nico Georgiades, Unicorn Riot reporter and worker, they're like very low hierarchy, non-hierarchy. I can call him their boss, like when he's not here, right? But he was like the most in charge, if you can be in charge in an organization that doesn't have any hierarchy. He said that everybody can have their own truth. I think that sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? I know the Americans know that their president has his own truth. Speaking of how many people are attending, the events he's in and whatnot. But that's just his stance. Then again, Georgia Ford, who had her own company, had worked with Unicorn Riot previously, said that it's verified facts, right? That sounds somewhat more, let's say, not conservative. Dingen Zaba, who spends his time in South Africa and in the States, said that truth is anything that you can verify. It's not just a perspective. Okay. I believe truth is proof. You need to have proof beyond the reasonable doubt. I know this resonates with the people who are in law, like the lawyers here. King Demetrius Pendleton, the gentleman, I showed you the photo earlier. But the next question is, can you be an activist and a journalist at the same time? King Demetrius Pendleton, the guide for the young men and the photographer and videographer, said that to be an activist is to be a journalist. And actually, he's here referring to the ground theory or framing theory, because like everything, you make a decision when you choose to write about something or make a podcast about something, right? Well, okay, arguable. Liz Collin, who's a conservative media, Alpha News reporter, said, well, if you're doing journalism the right way, being an activist isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, she said, like, I'm not an activist, I'm a journalist. So there's like a stigma to that. And Brad Siegel, who's a photographer, said, my values come first. He also wanted to know my political stance before he spoke to me. He said that I wouldn't speak to you if you were supporting this and this. And I said, this is not about me, this is about you, and what I think doesn't matter. And he went with that, but this is the first time that I bumped into that, to be quite honest. I believe that's going to happen more and more as I proceed with my research. Okay, I'm almost shut it down. Wow, okay. So, no, and the people from Unicorn Riot, and it's been around for 10 years. They cover social justice issues, Black Lives Matter, environmental things, healthcare, some things that are very democratic, to put it like in a simple way. They are like kind of left-leaning, but they had some problems. Like 2 of their workers, which are less than 10 at the moment, said that they actually gave up being a journalist and went on full-on activist and came back because there was a clash. One was attending a protest, and he saw something there. He saw that the protesters started to fight with each other, right? And he thought, okay, we need to write about this. But there was a pushback. from inside the media, you could write, like, do we want to write about the protesters in a way that make them look like, not so good, maybe disagreeing, and we need the donations from the public, we don't want to alienate them? So they saw there's a limit, like there's a difference. And sadly, I don't know yet, based on my interviews, kind of journalist, be an activist. I know that people suffer, and then some people take it as it's like a medal, like I'm an activist, I'm a journalist. And then I myself, this is my personal opinion, I struggle somewhat to I read their content in a different way. Okay. What was common for all the people I met and who I interviewed, it was also very nice, I got to meet most of them face to face, was that the mainstream media lies. And that made me very sad. I work in the most mainstream media in Finland, right? So I was petrified. I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna be out of work, this is close to Finland. And the right-wing people, the conservatives, thought that the mainstream media is super woke and they don't know anything, and they portrayed the police officers in bad light, right? And then the left-leaning media, the liberals, thought that the mainstream media is just copy-pasting everything that the Minneapolis Police Department puts out and believes everything the government says. So they kind of detested. They were complaining. They were using, it's just changing a couple of words here and there. It was basically the same rant they gave me, which was that the public media is shit, or like mainstream media is not good. And the government lies, wow, this is like the government lies the most. You can't trust it. And this was more from the left-leaning side. Here is an example of Unicorn Riot's website. They use social media very cleverly. They only use they don't have a big production thing, which you probably already guessed. They don't have a big TV cameras or anything, just phones and maybe some other tools. But what they did, what I found really, really disturbing, is that if they were streaming live from the riots, they went into the audience and they were streaming live, and if there was a citizen vandalizing or setting a car on fire, they wouldn't film that, but they would film or throwing rocks at the police officers, but they would film only the police officer's response. So you can imagine if that is your only source of news, that makes the police look even worse than it is, right? And when I asked if there's a problem with that people might get the wrong information, they said, but the police get the coverage again in the mainstream media, so they don't need it. For me, I think there's something important left behind, especially if it comes to harming property or humans or whatever. So, okay. And this is the one thing that I actually really was horrified of. One of the people I interviewed, Nico Georgiades, he told me that his lack of trust for the mainstream media is so vast, is so big, is so powerful that he doesn't trust BBC, he doesn't trust Reuters, he doesn't trust even not the American companies, news companies, because they are owned by whatever. There's kind of biases. There's money involved, investments involved. So he watches Russia Today America. As a Finnish person who's a journalist by training, I wasn't very happy, and I swore myself I will not comment even the most weird things they will tell me. I will just say, interesting, and then I will just record, right? And I couldn't control myself. I said, what would you say if I told you that 98% of Finns consider Russia Today to be a complete propaganda machine, poisoned by Kremlin, false news? I said, well, it's different. Why would they, they don't have an interest to show America in a weird island, and they are showing what America is really like. It's also about framing. They might show the actual things, right? but you just clip and frame in a certain way, you can make things look so much worse. Okay, and now, oh my God, sorry, Zach, I went 20. Okay, I have one more slide, which is going to be my last one. The answer to the fact that can we be objective has been, I've heard this both through my research at work, from my audience at Finnish Broadcasting Company, and it has been that, okay, maybe you can't be objective, but a journalist should tell what he or she thinks, to give out some of her values so we could maybe then consider what he or she thinks and whatever. Okay, so let's follow this logic to its natural conclusion. Let's play a game. We all agree we can't be objective. We all agree we have to tell what we think. We all have to reveal ourselves to the reader. Okay. Name, age, education, right? You can find that on LinkedIn. That's perfectly fine. Then, who did you vote for? Who do your friends vote for? Who do your parents vote for? Or your partner? Are you married? Are you a parent? If you have been through divorce, how are you navigating with co-parenting agreements? Are you paying your alimony? Are your children perfect students, or are they struggling with the law? What is your sexual orientation? There's a lot of LGBT stuff happening, and we're reporting it. Do you believe in God? And if so, which one? Do you take the Holy Scripture literally, or as a metaphor? Where do you live? Do you own your home, or do you have a terrible mortgage? How much money do you have on your bank account? Yeah? Were your parents rich? Do you live in a good address or in a bad neighborhood? What do you eat? Are you a vegan? Do you eat meat? Do you drink? How much do you drink? Do you drive a car that's electrical or hybrid? Or do you still buy gas, right? Or do you have allergies? Do you have addictions? I don't know. Where would we stop? What do you want to share? Do I want to know this as a reader, like about your divorces and about I don't know what your mother did or didn't do, and if you're traumatized and if you're on any medication? Okay. I'm gonna end with that. Thank you. Kiitos.